by John Green, Maureen Johnson, and Lauren Miracle. Three holiday romances. The Jillaby Express, Maureen Johnson. To Hannah, who embodied then go down the hill really fast, and if something gets in your way, turn school of teaching me how to deal with a snowy slope, and for all who toil behind the facade of a corporate monolith, for every person who has to say grand latte 3,000 times a day, for every soul who's ever had to deal with a broken credit card reader in a holiday rush, this is the one for you. Chapter 1. It was the night before Christmas. Well, to be more precise, it was the afternoon before Christmas. But before I take you into the beating heart of this action, let's get one thing out of the way. I know from experience that if it comes up later, it will distract you so much that you won't be able to concentrate on anything else I tell you. My name is Jubilee Duggle. Take a moment and let it sink in. Let's see how you get it up front. It's not that bad. Now imagine, I was halfway through some long story like I'm about to be and dropped that one on you. By the way, my name is Jubilee. Jubilee. You wouldn't know what to do next. I realize Jubilee is a bit of a stripper's name. You probably think I have heard the call of the pole, but no. If you saw me, you'd get the idea pretty quickly that I'm not a stripper. I think. I have a little black bob. I wear glasses half the time and contacts the other half. I'm 16, I sing in choir, I attend Mathletes events, I play field hockey, which lacks the undulating, baby-oiled grace that is a stripper's stock in trade. I have no problem with strippers. In case any as reading this, I'm just not one. My major concern, strippage-wise, is the latex. I think latex is probably bad for your skin because it doesn't allow it to breathe. My objection is that Jubilee isn't a name. It's some kind of party. No one knows what kind. Have you ever heard of someone throwing a jubilee? And if you did, would you go? Because I wouldn't. It sounds like something where you have to rent a large inflatable object, put up bunting, and make a complicated plan for a trash disposal. Come to think of it, it might be interchangeable with hoedown. My name has a lot to do with the story, and like I said, it was the afternoon before Christmas. I was having one of those days when you feel that life likes you. Finally, we're over and school was done until New Year's. I was alone in our house, which was feeling very cozy and snug. I was dressed for the night in a few outfits I'd saved for a black skirt, tights, a sparkly red t-shirt, and my new black boots. I was drinking a little eggnog latte that I'd cooked up for myself. All my presents were wrapped and ready to go. It was all leading up to the big event at 6. I was supposed to go to Noah's house, Noah Price, my boyfriend, for his family's annual Christmas Eve smorgasbord. The Price family annual smorgasbord is a big deal in our personal history. It was how we got together in the first place. Before the smorgasbord, Noah Price was just a star in my sky, constant. Familiar, bright, and far above me. I'd known Noah since the 4th grade, but it felt like I knew him in the same way that I known people on the television. I knew the name. I watched the show, sure. Noah was a bit closer than that, but somehow when it's real, when it's your life, that person can feel even farther off and more unobtainable than an actual celebrity. Proximity doesn't breed familiarity. Familiarity. I had always liked him, but it never occurred to me to like him. to like him. I never thought that was a reasonable thing to want. He was a year older than me, a foot taller, broad of shoulder, bright of eye, and floppy hair. Noah was a whole package: athlete, academic, school government, bigwig, the kind of person you think must only date models or spies or people who have Lamborghinis named after them. Labor- Laboratories named after them, not Lamborghinis. So when Noah invited me to come along the El Smorgasbord on Christmas Eve last year, I more or less ruptured in my excitement and confusion. I couldn't walk straight for 3 days when I got the invitation. It was so bad that I actually had to consciously practice walking in my room before I went to his house. I had no idea if he had asked me because he liked me or if his mom made him. Our parents know each other. Or because he lost a bet. All my friends were just excited. Were just as excited. But they seemed to understand it more than I did. They assured me that he had been eyeing me in mathletes, laughing at my attempts at ch- trigonometry jokes, bringing me up in the conversation. It was all so crazy, as weird as finding out that someone had written a book about my life or something. When I got there, I spent most of the night safely propped up in the corner talking to his sister, who, though I loved her, is not exactly deep. There is only so much you can say about your favorite brands of hoodies. Maybe you feel the conversational walls closing in, but she can go like a champion. Ellis has some thoughts on the subject. I finally took a break just as Noah's mom was setting out another plate, and I could make the "oh, excuse me, but that doesn't look good" excuse. I had no idea what was on it, but it turned out to be pickled fish. I was backing away, but his mom said, "You have to try a piece." Being a bit of a leaming, I did, but this time it worked out because that's when I noticed that Noah was watching me. He said, "I'm so glad you took some." I asked him, "Why?" "Because I really think I suspected it was all a bet." "Okay, I'll ask her to come, but you guys have to give me $20 if I can make her eat pickled fish." And he said, "Because I've been eating it." I was still standing there, and what I assumed was a very enchanting expression of total stupidity etched on my face, so he added, "And I couldn't kiss you unless you had some too," which is both gross and breathtakingly romantic. He could always just gone upstairs, brushed his teeth, but he stayed and lurked by the fish for me. We snuck off to the garage where we made out under the shelf of power tools. That was the start of it all. So the So the particular Christmas Eve I'm about to tell you about wasn't just any Christmas Eve. This was our 1 year anniversary. It was almost impossible to believe it had been a year. It had all gone by so fast. See, Noah is always really busy. When he emerged into the world, tiny and wrinkled and pink, he probably had to get footprint and out of the hospital as quickly as possible to get to a meeting. As a senior, a member of the soccer team and president of the student council, his time had been whittled away to almost nothing. I think in the year that we had been dating, we had about a dozen proper dates with just Noah and me, and going somewhere by ourselves about once a month. We'd had plenty of joint appearances, Noah and Jubilee at the student council bake sale, Noah and Jubilee at the soccer team raffle table, Noah and Jubilee at the food drive, in the tutoring room, at the homecoming organization meeting. Noah was aware of this, and though tonight was a family event with many people in attendance, he promised me there would be time for us. He made sure of it by helping out in advance. If we put in 2 hours at the party, he promised we could escape to the back of the room and exchange our gifts and watch the Grinch Who Stole Christmas together. He would drive me home, and we would stop for a while. And then, of course, my parents got arrested. and all of that went to hell. I'm gonna go take a rip. Do you know the Floppy Santa Village? The Floppy Santa Village is such a big part of my life that I just assume everyone knows what it is. But I've been told recently that I make way too many assumptions, and I'll explain. The Floppy Santa Village is a series of collectible ceramic pieces that can be put together to form a town. My parents have been collecting them since the time I was born. I've been staring down at those tiny plastic cobblestone streets since I was big enough to stand on my own. We have it all. The Candy Cane Bridge, Lake Snow Begone, the Gumdrop Shop, the Gingerbread Bakery, Sugar Plum Alley. It's not small either. My parents bought a special table to put it on, and it takes up the center of the living room from Thanksgiving until New Year's. It requires 7 power strips to make it all work. In order to diminish the environmental impact, I got them to turn it off at night, but it was a struggle. I was named Floppy Santa Village Building Number 4, Jubilee Hall. Jubilee Hall is the biggest building in the collection. It's the main place that presents are made and wrapped, where the presents are made and wrapped. It has colored lights, a working conveyor belt with gifts stuck to it, and little elves that turn if they're loading and unloading them. The elves of Jubilee Hall each have a present glued to their hands. So what it really looks like are a bunch of tortured beings doomed to pick up and set down the same gift over and over again until the end of time or until the motor breaks. I remember pointing this out to my mom when I was little. She said I was missing the point, maybe so. We were clearly coming from different directions on the subject, considering she felt those little buildings were important enough to name her only offspring after. I love you! People who called the Floppy Village tend to get a little obsessed with it. There are conventions, about a dozen serious websites, and 4 magazines. Some of them try to play it off by saying the floppy pieces are an investment. And they are worth a lot of money, it's true, especially the numbered ones. You can only buy those pieces at floppy showrooms on Christmas Eve. We live in Richmond, Virginia, which is only about 50 miles away. So every year on the night of 23rd, my parents leave with a car full of blankets, chairs, and provisions and sit in a line all night and wait. Floppy used to make 100 numbered pieces, but last year had reduced it to 10. This is when things got bad. 100 pieces wasn't nearly enough, so when the number went down to just 1/10 of that, the claws came out and the fur started to fly. There was a problem last year when people tried to hold places in line, a problem that quickly turned into people smacking each other with rolled up floppy catalogs, throwing cookie tins, stomping on each other's lawn chairs, and dumping lukewarm cocoa on each other's Santa Claus hatted heads. The fight was big enough and ridiculous enough to make local news. Floppy said that they were taking measures to make sure it didn't happen again, but I never believed that. You can't buy the kind of publicity. But I wasn't thinking about You can't buy that kind of publicity. But I wasn't thinking about when my parents drove off to the lot to get in line for piece number 68, the Elf Hotel. And I still wasn't thinking about it when I was drinking my eggnog latte and while away and willing away the time until I got to go to Noah's. I did notice that my parents were late arriving home where later arriving home than usual. They usually got back from Floppy around lunchtime on the Christmas Eve, and here it was, almost 4 o'clock. I started doing some of of the general holiday duties to keep myself busy. I couldn't call Noah. I knew he was busy getting ready for the smorgasbord, so I added some extra ribbon and holly to his presents. I switched on all the power strips that power the Floppy Santa village, setting all the enslaved elves to work. I turned on the Christmas carols. I was just stepping outside to turn on the lights on the front of the house when I saw Sam advancing towards our house with his stormtrooper stride. Sam is our lawyer. And when I saw our lawyer, I mean our neighbor who happens to be an extremely high powered lawyer in Washington, D.C. Sam is exactly the person you want to take on a huge corporation or to represent you when you're being sued for $1 billion. He is not, however, Mr. Cuddles. I was about to invite him in to try one of my delicious eggnog lattes, but he cut me off. I have some bad news, he said, ushering me into my own house. There's been another incident at the Flobby showroom inside. Come on. I thought he was going to say that my parents had been killed. He had that kind of tone. I envisioned huge piles of Elf Hotel flying off the belt, taking down everyone in sight. I had seen pictures of Elf Hotel. It had sharp candy cane spears that could easily impale someone, and if anyone was ever going to be killed by an Elf Hotel, it would be my parents. They're they're they've been taken into custody, he said. They're in jail. Who's in jail? I asked because I'm not super quite on the uptake, and because it was much easier for me to envision my parents being taken down by a flying elf hotel than it was to think of them being taken into handcuffs. Sam just looked at me and waited for me to catch up on my own. There was another fight when the pieces came out this morning, he explained after a pause. An argument about who was holding spots in line. Your parents weren't part of it, but they didn't disperse when the police told them to. They got hauled in with the others. 5 people have been booked. It's all over the news. I felt my legs starting to wobble. So I sat down on the sofa. Why didn't they call? I asked. One phone call, he said. They called me because they thought I could get them out, which I can't. What do you mean you can't? The idea that Sam couldn't bust my parents out of the country clink was ridiculous. It was like hearing a pilot come over the intercom and say, "Hey everyone, I just remembered. I'm no good at landing, so I'm just going to keep flying around until someone has a better idea." I did my best, Sam went on, but the judge isn't budging. He's sick of these flobby problems, so he's making an example of them all. Your parents instructed me to take you to the train station. I only have an hour. Then I have to be back for hot cookies and sing along at 5. How quickly can you pack? This was delivered in the same gravelly tone of voice that Sam probably used when pounding people on the stand about why they were running from the scene covered in blood. He didn't look happy that this task had been foisted on him on Christmas Eve. Still, a little touch of Oprah would have helped. Pack train station what? You're going to Florida to stay with your grandparents, he said. Couldn't get a flight. They're being canceled all over the place because of the storm. What storm? Jubilee, Sam said very slowly, having concluded that I was the least aware person on the planet. We're about to have the biggest storm in 50 years. My brain wasn't working right. None of this was going in. I can't go, I said. I'm supposed to see Noah tonight. And Christmas. What about Christmas? Sam shrugged, as if to say that Christmas was beyond his control and there was nothing the legal system could do about it. But why can't I just stay here? This is crazy. Your parents don't want you alone for 2 days over the holiday. I can't go to Noah's. I have to go to Notice. Look, he said. It's all arranged. We can't reach your parents now. They're being processed. I bought your ticket and I don't have a lot of time. You're going to pack now, Jubilee. I turned and looked at the twinkling little cityscape next to me. I couldn't see the shadows of the doomed elves as I worked away Jubilee Hall. The warm glow of Miss Muggin's cake shop, the slow but merry process of the elves express around the little expanse of track. The only thing I could think to ask was, but what about the village? Ended page 12.